So, tech design, what is it good for? What is it? How did I end up in it? How does it like, a lot of questions. I just wanted to talk about what this field in mostly AAA is and my general experiences with it and give people a rundown. So here, if we begin this. So I am one, as in I am a tech designer, name's Kaya. I have done 7 years of indie since I was 17, 20 plus releases, six of those commercial, 150,000 plus downloads. And then I finished my diploma in computer science, became a programming intern at Behavior Interactive. Then basically they asked me, hey, like, what do you want to do in life? And I was like, I think I would eventually like to be a director or designer. And they were like, yeah, no way. But also we do need tech designers. And I was like, fair enough. So I get pushed into being a tech design intern, which I find I enjoy a lot. And currently, as of last February, this February, yeah, I have been working at Haven Interactive as part of Sony Interactive Entertainment as another tech design position. By September, my contract runs out. You know, if you require my particular skill set, do shoot me a message in case. Anyway, side quest for this presentation, you can find me on YouTube, itch.io, LinkedIn, Twitter, or Blue Sky under either OKSoft, which is my, the name I release games under, or my actual name. That's a quick career summary. Don't want to talk about myself too much, actually. So, let's just go into your production pipeline, right? Say you have a director on your team who requests more intentional combat because the players are, say, reporting that the combat just feels a bit like not punchy, I guess. And then, so the director will pass to the designer information along the lines of, hey, the player base is not happy with our combat systems, figure out something to make it more impactful. Now, the designer might think, okay, fair enough. Let's see, how do we make combat more impactful slash intentional? Yeah, we can do manually operated firearms. In this example, a revolver. I happen to have a prop. And so as a tech designer, the designer generally, depending on your production process, the designer comes to you and goes, hey, Kaya, I want to add revolvers to our video game. Can we do this? Is it easy? And what do we actually require? And depending on the specifics of what they want, I might be like, technically really simple to do. We have all of the systems, but if you're going to say have the hammer manually cocked instead of operating like a semi-auto pistol, or have individual bullet reloading instead of the whole mag at a time, then those are going to be extra systems we're going to need to develop, and I will hopefully have some comprehension of how difficult our systems are to work with and extend. I can talk to the designer like, hey, these functions you want are easy to do. These functions are already in. We just need to add the data. These functions are basically impossible. And then I go to the programmer in this case, and I will ask, hey, can you implement me a system that allows me to break up an animation into 3 for reloads instead of being a singular reload animation, so we can have a different number of rounds reloaded? We might want a new control scheme, so on and so forth. And once the programmer gets that done, I didn't know how to display it in this cat-filled slide, but the programmer sends it back either to the tech designer or the designer, who then implement it in the game. So you go down on this list, and then you bounce back up once the feature is available but not yet integrated, I think is the word I wanted to use there. So also, I didn't realize this until now, but I had to make a joke slide. So many cats, and I'm talking about revolvers, Okay. Video game references aside, so you are there to answer and know certain questions. Thank you, Kenna. At least someone got it in the chat. So, for our questions, we have, what do we want in our game? How does it get integrated or implemented or utilized by the design, art, programming, and so on and so forth teams? When is it likely to be done? So if your producer is hearing your designer pitch a feature, you can be there and be like, yeah, this is like actually really easy, or this is actually really hard, because people speak different languages, as previously covered by the producers like panel. Sometimes you feel that you are basically a translator effectively between the tech and design teams, and sometimes even other teams. Tech design is shockingly not just about tech and design. You do a lot of everything, either way. So who needs what for what purpose when a new thing is considered, like, for, addition to the video game, and what existing systems do we have? Can we use those things to implement what we want to implement? And also, no one knows what the tech designer does, actually. You, like, sort of put out fires, run errands. It's kind of like tech art, but for design. There's a bunch of confusion. So I just have a list of some of the things I have personally done. I have mostly attended meetings. I help a lot of different skills communicate. I am a trained programmer with, again, years of indie development experience, and this is why I was, like, put into a tech design position in the first place. I kind of have an understanding of how technical systems work, as well as, like, what you might want to do as a game designer and what you might want to be tunable. And sometimes when these two teams communicate directly without a translation layer, you will get the programmers, for example, building something that is way too complex and insanely difficult to use for the designers, that might not even achieve what they asked in the first place, or the designers might not ask for something at all because they think it's, like, impossible to do, and turns out it's just a button. Your job is to prevent things like that. Primarily, you're a communicator, but also I do a lot of in-engine integration, where, like, if there's a new feature, a new functionality at Haven, a lot of the time it is, hey Kaya, can you, like, test and figure out how this works and, like, put it in the game and kind of, run a stress test over it effectively. I write documentation. Sometimes I make my own tools, and sometimes I use other people's tools or, like, systems. And a lot of the time, the documentation falls on me. I will just go in and go into the company Confluence and just fill out, hey, here's how you use this thing efficiently, and what you can do with it. I do a bit of design, obviously, as implied by the name. I have made shooting ranges to test weapons. I have made animation display things. I have made little shader stuff for, like, artists at points. I know that is entirely tech art, but you dabble a lot. I, again, have done a bit of tools programming. If you're working with Unreal Engine 5, tech designer can mean blueprint programmer. I don't know how other engines might have that shaped. You might do more programming, or you might do no programming whatsoever. And a bit of, like, level scripting, where, like, I figure out what the level flow must be with the existing systems and, like, get it running in the first place. So the designer basically says, I want this level to run like this, and it's my job to make sure all of the nodes are connected and such. It's also a lot of busy work. Rename thousands of objects manually. As a good tech designer, you're expected to sort of, like, build a tool here, or just drink a lot of Monster Energy and thug it out for an evening. You occasionally will clean up some stuff for the level design team, where, like, a certain object must not ever face toward the wall. There's 55 of them. We don't know who else is going to do it. Tech designer, figure it out, which is, fun, depending on, again, what you consider. And I do a lot of maintenance and updates as well on certain game elements, where it's like anything that has to do with the gameplay, or again, level scripting, some amount of level design, documentation. Those things fall out of date sometimes, and someone needs to go in and make them work with how we are using them now, or what is available now. And oftentimes, because you have a very comprehensive view of what the project is and how it operates behind the scenes, you're the person sent in to, like, figure it out. So you do a bit of everything. So there is obviously pros and cons to this sort of work. First and foremost, the pros. This is very generalist work. As an indie developer with a varied skill set, I take a lot of joy in being able to, like, get a holistic, comprehensive view, even as a junior, over the project. I get a lot of joy out of getting to do anything between level design and programming on the same project. Again, despite, like, being in AAA, where normally you are more specialized, and one or more teams will be reliant on and appreciative of you. So if you build a particular tool that is very useful to a team, and you often will, or say you are the arm that does the integration for a team that's developing a bunch of new stuff, uh, these teams will be very appreciative of you and respect your opinions, which feels good in my opinion. I like helping people, and my work is both visible to like the teams on the studio as well as the players on the other end. It is very flexible. You can enter and exit through every end. I have coworkers in tech design who were designers with zero programming experience. I have coworkers in tech design who were programmers with zero design experience. I have tech artist coworkers who switched into tech design. You can sort of like go into it through any end. Someone just needs to think you can do systems thinking, which is relatively easy to prove once you join a company. Again, you get a holistic view. I personally really like this, and occasionally my work almost feels like I'm making game mods, where like instead of actually developing a game behind the scenes, like with the engine and all of the stuff that gets like a bit messy and you have to do it all clean. A lot of the time you're doing prototype work. A lot of the time you're just like patching things together. So even in the context of like a AAA studio where everything is done normally pretty properly, I almost feel like I'm like making a Bethesda game mod sometimes, and this is really nice. And also, this is both a pro and a con, you'll notice, you're a personality hire. So the sort of person you are, whether or not that gets along with your team is what determines if this is a pro or a con, because naturally, because your role is so communicative and also such like a like potential linchpin in so many things, it is useful to be likable, but not everyone will get along with every type of personality. This just happens. And like as a programmer, you can kind of work for a team that you do not agree with on account of you just write the code when asked. As a tech designer, you just sort of absolutely have to be liked by the people around you. Otherwise, you're going to have a bad time. Like you can still be effective, but you know. Um, and the cons are many don't know what you're supposed to do. Every team that knows what a tech designer is, which is like, there's a reason I'm making this presentation happen. It's because no one really knows what I do, including people at my own studio. Every team that does know what a tech designer is wants more tech designers. There's a huge shortage of them everywhere in the industry, from what I can tell. However, also, it is really difficult to walk up to like studio leadership and basically go, hey, we have this not a programmer, not a designer who we really want. And it's just hard to justify why you want another tech designer on your team, or why you want even one tech designer on your team. And also, because many don't know what you're supposed to do, you're going to have situations where the pipeline is built a bit weird. And this either means that you get included way too late or way too early, where you're taking on more of a share of the like design work or the programming work than you otherwise should be. So your specific skill set doesn't get utilized so much as you just patch up random stuff for other teams. You might enjoy this, but personally, I am very much a proponent of inserting the tech designer like middle of the process. And this is generally how you end up working best and being the most useful to your team. Um, the varied work also can be do what no one else wants to. Again, rename 1,000 things. Good luck. We don't have tools for it. And sometimes you can't develop the tools for it. And you are, again, not an out and out designer or programmer. So especially in the context of certain companies, people will try to pay you like a designer, and designers are underpaid, as are programmers, but relatively speaking, designers are more underpaid. And so not only are you like a relatively unknown quantity that is both in demand but also no one knows they need you, you also like are a in between in terms of like professions. So this means that like how your company values and treats you is very random slash interesting at times. And again, you're a personality hire. it is a emotionally and voice-wise draining job. I am, despite being able to present here, I am a huge introvert. I get tired really easily. I burn out my voice really easily. It takes a lot of personal effort for me to like go to the office every day, attend God knows how many hours of meetings while also like juggling a bunch of Unreal Engine tech stuff in the back. But I do it personally because I love it. It suits my skill set perfectly, and I get to have AAA style stability while also doing indie style varied work. Um, and I think that's a presentation. Um, so if anyone were to have any questions, I would be more than happy to answer. I kind of ran through it faster than I expected to.
No worries at all. Yeah, so if anybody has any questions, I'll give it a minute or so. Otherwise, I have a few of my own that I'd like to ask. So, yeah, just waiting for a little bit for people to type it out. Actually, no, while we wait, I will just ask one of my questions. So, um, forgive me if I'm wording this improperly, but like my understanding based off your description of how you got into tech design was that you kind of stumbled your way into this. And I'm curious, like for people that were interested by the presentation, whose curiosity was piqued, is there like a particular path that you recommend to make your way towards this position, or like or any particular learning that you recommend people do before they try and look at this position?
Yeah. So again, tech design is naturally a very varied job, and everyone does it in a different manner. When I first even heard about it being a thing from my manager at Behavior, I walked up to the nearest tech designer I could find, Jordan Dines, lovely guy. Um, and I asked him, "Hey, like, what do you do?" And he's like, "I have no education in anything technical. I'm just a game designer who happened to land a job in tech design because I am good with numbers and I balanced guns for a game previously. And I personally landed a tech design role on account of I've done indie, I have a comp sci diploma and also design experience. So I am a perfect meld of like the skill set. So if you're interested in the position, the one thing to display effectively is I am technically competent and I also have a design sided mind to a certain extent. So for say if you're a programmer or like trained up as a programmer and wanting to go into design as like within AAA, you can oftentimes make like a horizontal in company switch, which is how I got into it. But also if you're a designer who also happens to know a bunch about programming and you can like portfolio piece a relatively complex system that is like elegantly handled. Mind you, it is very difficult to describe systems in portfolios. My portfolio has nothing about that. It just describes like some cool things that I like came up with in design. For example, a game called Coffin Mall I made has a very complex audio system that live generates audio for shopping carts. Um, the shopping carts just look and sound realistic despite in-game being just boxes like in the in the engine. And the complex sound system I describe as part of my three C's, but realistically a tech designer who sees that portfolio can look at this and go, okay, so this person had a relatively complex, cool idea and also was good enough technically to execute on it. And no one's going to do this for a job interview, but like they could theoretically play the game and check it out and see that the cards indeed make shopping cart noises. So I did stumble into it, and in the long run, I still want to move toward less concrete, more like on paper work. But for the time being, it again suits my skill set very well. I can basically do what I do as an indie, but get paid AAA wages right now.
That sounds really awesome. Thank you so much for the detailed answer. Kenna has another question, so I'm going
Yeah.
to read that out. Thank you so much for this talk. Here's my question. What are your tips to be your own best version of a personality hire? What do you do when you realize this is part of your work, especially as a more introverted person?
So in especially in games, because of how the industry is, you effectively end up trauma bonding with all of your teammates if we're being real. But generally, wherever you get hired as a personality hire to a certain extent. There is not one company that will hire you if you have a terrible personality, regardless of how competent you are. And like the interview stages that you go through, much as I have my concerns about them, are more for filtering who you are as a person rather than filtering what you are capable of doing for the team. Um, but personally, the way I do personality hire stuff is like I am a very honest person. I speak fast. I am very opinionated and loud about my opinions. And this does cause conflict, right? This is how I personally operate, and I want to be true to myself. And if a company is looking to hire and I present myself how I am during the interview process, where I like confidently talk about what I have done, and they ask me for examples of systems I find interesting, and I'm going to like for example for Haven, I was asked what's a system you find interesting in a particular game. Now this is a AAA studio working on something I can't say, but for an example, I gave totally accurate battlegrounds as systems, like character systems specifically, because every character in that game is a ragdoll. This is super janky. It's not what you want, especially from AAA. But I was like, look, it gives me insane amounts of flexibility with what I can do with my character in the video game. It allows the movement a unique flexibility that nothing else has, and it makes it more visceral. And so like I don't think the person interviewing me agreed with me that this was a good way to do things. In fact, he asks, "Doesn't that make the game unstable?" And I'm like, "Yeah, it makes it really unstable, actually." But at the end of the day, it is what I like, and I am like more than willing to stand my ground on. I think this is a cool thing at the very least, and they see that, and they're either okay with it or not. If you're a less confrontational, more less opinionated, and or like more get along with people type of person, mind you, I do get along with people. It's just I don't get to go out of my way to do it. If you're a less confrontational, less opinionated person, your life becomes easier. Just especially as a TD, you do still need to have boundaries because this is a job that you can technically do like for 9 hour workdays, 10 hour workdays, get pushed into like cleaning up random stuff for the level design team instead of writing your tools. There is a lot of things that can happen to you when you have a relatively less defined role. So the main thing I guess about like being a personality hire and being like likable to your teammates is you have to be honest about who you are, your personality features, what you're capable of doing, what you're not capable of doing. You have to be really communicative. If you can't do anything, don't try to like ram your head against it and keep promising that it's going to be done tomorrow. I swear. You're just supposed to be like, hey, dear producer, I unfortunately have hit a wall. Can you assign me a programmer so I can like debug this? So, yeah, just be communicative, be honest with yourself, be honest with your team, and express yourself as the person you are. And as an introvert, don't be ashamed to take up space. I notice a lot of it gets worse if you're just like kind of being squeezed out of conversations. You are a person with valuable input, and in fact, you are responsible for having input. So, your job is to yap. You should be yapping.
You so much. So we've got a couple of questions come in. I'm going to read the first one by Kyle. So one question I have is about the longevity of the role. You mentioned how many studios don't know what to do with tech designers. So how do you see the importance of their role in the future? Do you see more studios adopting the role and potentially making tech design more prominent role, especially with the rise of indie developers?
So as an indie developer, you already have all of the skill set necessary to be a tech designer. Um, so it is inevitable, I think, that we're going to see more people with this sort of exact skill set. And we are much like tech artists in a sense, where like 10, 15 years ago, you know, what is a tech artist? Even probably 10 years ago, I met my first tech artist friend and I'm like, what do you even do? And turns out that means shader programmer, but also I can do art, right? And I'm sure they were struggling in a similar manner, but it is a very specific combination skill set. Again, the same way tech art is, where like nowadays, a good tech artist is insanely valuable because they can bridge the gap between your tech staff and your graphics programmers and your art staff. Any designer who I meet who is aware of tech designers being a thing is like, yeah, I need at least two more. There is not one company, not one production team that I have met that doesn't want more tech designers. They just need to convince administration. That can be slow, but given the job is inherently flexible, I believe it could be pretty easy for me to switch into, say, a programming role again, or become a full-time designer, or like become a full-time level designer, or like eventually just jump straight to game director. So even if the current longevity is lacking on account of studios don't know why they need you, or like the bigwigs at least cannot justify the financial cost, let's be real, that does not mean that this will be this way forever. And as time goes on, our job will be more specific, which will make it less special, in my opinion, but also like significantly more in demand. And I'll just read the next question myself, if you're okay with the Yelmas. From Ziad, we have, in your experience, are there entry-level positions for technical designers, or is it mostly those in-company horizontal switches? So after my time at Behavior, I worked as a junior intermediate tech designer. I mean, again, I had not very much experience. No one counts your indie experience. This is a bit of advice for careers if you haven't started yours. Unfortunately, no one cares how many downloads you've gotten or how much money you've made. They don't care if you're Toby Fox. As a AAA, you have no experience. But I got hired on at Super Brothers, a Canadian indie company, as a junior intermediate tech designer. And then I left, and then I got hired at Haven as a junior tech designer. So it is entirely possible for you to get put into like a tech design position without a horizontal switch. They are like rarely advertised, but if you have a specific skill set and or indie experience, chances are you have a decent shot at getting in. We have one from Valencia. I'm a gameplay engineer and I'm trying to show off my design skill. How can I do that on my team? Um, the solution to this is you attend game jams and you make video games. Alternatively, if there is ever a situation where your designer needs input or your design team has meetings that you can attend, you show up. Like at Behavior, I was a pest to the design team while I was a programming intern. I would be at every meeting listening in, providing probably too many opinions for an intern that's not even on the team to provide, and generally paying attention and being interested. And if your design team thinks, oh, this person has decent ideas and also knows how to construct a system, we could use this person as a conduit for our ideas to travel to the programming team and vice versa in like more efficient manners, or you can pitch yourself as such, then you can, slowly make that switch. It's just a matter of you need to display interest and aptitude in design, and either you do that with jam games or just like being annoying to your design team, annoying complimentary. But yeah, as Jose Luis, sorry, I the second name I mentally pronounce it French. Jose put it in chat. Yeah, like at the end of the day, the way at least that I see them as a person who wanted to make video games and like taught themselves how to do it is every video game that I want to make is a collection of systems, and I had to get really good at efficiently imagining systems and putting them into code. And the cool part of tech design, in my opinion, is now the designers say, hey, I want this. You're like, okay, here's how the system works. And then you tell the programmer to do the system. So you don't actually have to do the hard work of implementing the system. You just get to play with it. It is super nice. Would recommend.
You.
Anyway, that is it on my end. If anyone has any further questions, you can find me on the IGDA Discords under the username Rapid Kebab. I'm on almost all of the things that's either OKSoft or Okaya, and it has been a pleasure. Thank you for the very active listening and many questions. I always rely on people asking questions to fill up the time, and even then we are like 15 minutes early. Happens.
All good.